The one thing I've observed in the business is, or I hope the business continues to do, for those of you that don't have the gray hair, is to sort of stay entrepreneurial, sort of be empowered and do things that are new and different. And I started at BBDO and went to McCann Erickson. Steve Grubbs and I started together at BBDO and McCann, and then Darcy. And 6 months into Darcy, Anheuser-Busch said, Chuck Fruit, who went on to Coca-Cola to be their head media and global marketing guy, who was the most gentleman guy in the business other than Keith Reinhardt maybe, said, come work for us. And so I went to St. Louis as a young New Yorker, and we were very empowered. And August Busch III, who basically started Busch Media Group and said, I want people, who believe in the business, who work for me, and will consolidate all the brands. Now, keep in mind, in 1982, Anheuser-Busch had Budweiser, Busch, and Michelob. That was all the brands we had. But Bud Light didn't come out until 1985. The story that I told Jack I would tell, and there's two stories, was about empowerment. And in 1986, this fledgling thing called the Fox Network comes out, and they're looking for 5 sort of gold sponsors, $1 million a year. And having come out of the ESPN thing where we go, okay, we'll give $1 million a year for 5 years to ESPN, I had the opportunity to say, we'll do $1 million on Fox for something that was late night with Joan Rivers and 2 nights of primetime, Tuesday and Thursday, for those who are following along. And we did the $1 million deal, which in today's term was at least $10 to $15 million a year, which as you go back and look at it today, says, well, you spend $1 million with Fox, not all that, aggressive or moving out in time, but it actually was a big deal in those days. How did that pay off? About 4 months later, we're negotiating with KTTV, which was the Fox affiliate owned and operated for Fox, who had the Dodgers, who just got the Dodgers deal. And Peter O'Malley, who was the owner of the Dodgers, basically had boycotted Anheuser-Busch for 5 years because he thought Gussie Busch had basically pulled the power play to oust Bowie Kuhn as commissioner of the MLB. So he said, there's no way Anheuser-Busch will ever be the beer sponsor for the Dodgers. And for 5 years, we were not the sponsor of the Dodgers. When they gave their rights to KTTV said, we need to have all the categories, including beer. And so KTTV said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a closed bid, which doesn't exist, I don't think, today. And I don't think existed on the national scale, but it existed with local teams. Put in a sealed envelope what your deal's going to be for 5 years to sponsor the Dodgers on KTTV. So we did our closed deal. Miller did the same thing. I was then told to be at the Denny's across the street and wait for Jamie Kellner, who was the CEO of Fox at the time, and Barry Diller was involved, and Rupert Murdoch, and wait for the call. Now, it's like, but be at the Denny's at noon. It's like, well, what should I be doing between the morning and noon? Well, KTLA had the Angels, and we were renewing the Angels at the same time. True story. So in the morning, Peter McLaughlin, who's now the CEO of the Seattle Seahawks, and I are negotiating with Michael Eigner, who's the GM of KTLA, for the Angels, in which, now this was before pagers and phones, I get a call and said, you have a call at your office. I get the call, go over to the Denny's. So I wink at Peter and say, keep the negotiating going with the Angels. I now have to go to the Denny's. I get to the Denny's, I get a call. I don't even know how I got the call. Go over to KTTV, in which Jamie Kellner says, the deals for 5 years of Dodgers between AB and Miller is basically the same. But because UAB supported us when no one knew what we were going to be, and still no one knew what they were going to be, for $1 million for Fox, you're the tiebreaker, you're going to get the deal. So we get the Fox, so we have the Fox national deal, we get the Dodgers for 5 years. Now I go back after lunch and wink to Peter and say, we have the Dodgers, but we can't leave until we get the Angels deal done, because Miller's going to go back to Milwaukee and say to KTLA, we'll do whatever it takes to get the Angels. And so after a few back and forths, we do the Angels that afternoon, go to Morton's, have dinner, celebrate. And in one day, we had gotten the Dodgers for 5 years, the Angels for 5 years, because we did $1 million deal with Fox. And the next morning, Miller called KTLA and say, we'll take tell us whatever it takes, we'll do the Angels. In which we get the call and said, you guys, you son of a, you know what, because, you knew you had the Dodgers, you did the deal with the Angels, and we got the deal. The point of the whole story is that it was allowing us to be entrepreneurial, which I don't see the business being as much that these days, Linda and Joe and whatever. It's getting too sort of consensus, sort of like building. Let the people who are doing their jobs do their jobs. So we were allowed to do the job and essentially look in the spirit of things. And for all those years, from 1986 to 2008, when I was at Anheuser-Busch, we had this unique relationship with Fox because we had trusted them at a time when they needed trust. And it's you all know in this room, and I teach a class at NYU on leadership. I was talking to Allison, and it's like, it's all about people. It's not about the money. It's not about the power of the corporation. It's about the trust that we all build with people. And let's not lose the empowerment and the trust of the people that are empowered to do the job to do it. One quick other story. Joe Aberze, who's a good friend now at Discovery at CBS, 1991, we're at Bern's Steakhouse on the Saturday before the 1991 Super Bowl, Ravens and the Giants, and I said, they always talk about the deals on the napkins. I said, let's do the next Super Bowl right now. We had probably too much of the red wine. I said, we already do 5 minutes of Super Bowl time. Let's do it. What's the inflation? And we wrote on a napkin, here's the deal for 1994, which is the next Super Bowl. His wife, Sherry Aberge, everyone knows Sherry. She's somewhat certifiable. Right, Steve? But she goes, Joe, he said yes too quick. It can't be a good deal for CBS. He said, well, he said, let's have breakfast in the morning. Let's make sure the wine isn't talking. We literally meet the next morning for breakfast. I said, Joe, the 5 minutes at the cost we did, I think it's a good price. He said, I do too. And we literally handshook with the napkin. I think Joe still has it. I don't have it. And we did the deal on the napkin. And those days, let's hope they're not gone, because it was about trust. It was about empowerment by the corporation. And it was what the beauty was. Nothing against the agencies. I started BBDO, went to McCann, went to Darcy. But it was about empowering the right people to do the job. And you know what? If you do a bad job, get rid of them, but empower the people to do the right job. So it was a great time for us. These were great stories of trusting the people you were with, and they were great accomplishments that we did that took a 22 market share to almost 49 market share with the help of Keith Reinhardt and Needham with their great Bud Light creative. So that's my story, Jack.